Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. My name's Charles Parselle. I'm the host of The Legal File, and it gives me great pleasure today to welcome as my guest one of the most distinguished trial attorneys in California, David Drexler. David Drexler, Esquire. David, how do you do?
Fine. Thank you for inviting me, Charles.
It's a pleasure. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you.
And let's start at the beginning.
Childbirth?
Childbirth, yes.
Normal childbirth.
Normal childbirth, that's good to hear. Are you a native of Los Angeles?
I am.
And so you were brought up, which part of town were you brought up?
Actually, Boyle Heights, East LA, which is now, it was then Brooklyn Avenue, now it's Cesar Chavez.
Hey, yes.
It's changed. The neighborhood changed slightly.
Neighborhood changed. So your parents, were your parents natives of Los Angeles?
Immigrants. They are survivors, Holocaust survivors from Eastern Europe.
Wow. How very interesting. Well, tell us, I can't stop here. I have to ask more. How did that happen?
How did the Holocaust happen?
No.
I don't think you have time in this show for that.
No, but tell us, well, how did your mother and father both survive the Holocaust?
Yes, my mother was in the most notorious concentration camp, Auschwitz, and she survived, and my father was also a survivor, and they met up in a displaced persons camp in Germany after the war, and then anybody who was left who was still healthy and looking to try to have a normal life found each other. I don't know if love was a factor or romance at that point. It was survival. And they met each other and started a life in Germany, and my older sister was born in Munich, Germany. And then they emigrated as soon as they could, get the freedom to come to this wonderful country, and arrived on its golden shores, and I'm blessed to be here.
You were born here?
I was born in Los Angeles. They arrived actually through Ellis Island in New York, and then didn't like New York, too much hustle bustle, came to Los Angeles. And my parents started what was the first kosher deli in the San Fernando Valley called, oddly enough, Drexler's, very original name.
Well, I've heard of it. It's a well-known, famous deli.
It was a landmark, and to this day there are old tour books that are printed all throughout the world, a little obsolete since my parents have retired and closed the deli about 10 years ago. But it was the place to visit if you wanted the perfect kosher pastrami sandwich in North Hollywood.
Did they do it all themselves?
They did. And my father, I can remember because we lived behind the store, the old model, the old European model, living where you work. And the store was on Burbank Boulevard and the house behind it on Martha Street. My father would get up at 4 in the morning and start cooking the corned beef and the pastrami, leave it on, come back home, across the alley, and let it cook, and then come back and finish it off at about 7:30 in the morning. So I remember that very well.
You were quite literally then brought up behind the store, or on top of the store.
Well, I think that part of being able to do what I do and being able to talk and socialize and to represent people, engage people, is the experience of being behind a deli counter. Because when people come in to eat, they talk about their problems, they talk about their lives, and you interact with them and you find out what makes them tick. And I think that that's where my real desire to work with people, work for people, help people with their problems, I think that's where it comes from.
Well, we're going to get to that in a few minutes.
Am I foreshadowing?
Yes, when I've satisfied my own curiosity. Were your parents the same nationality?
They're both Jews from Eastern Europe, from Poland, and nearby towns. My mother from a bigger town, my father from a smaller town.
But they didn't know each other until they met up in Germany?
Correct.
And then came. So where did you go to school here?
Well, I went to what is a parochial school, a religious school, called a yeshiva. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yes, I am.
Well, people today don't know what a yeshiva is, so I just say Toshiba, and they think, oh, you studied electronics, and you're very, very familiar with, perhaps you speak Japanese. No. So I went to a seminary type school for elementary school. And then I was very fortunate to have enough of that and go to public school where there were young girls of the same age, and that was important to me at the time. So I wound up at Grant High School, locally in the San Fernando Valley, and finished Grant High School. How far do you want me to go?
Well, just go through to the end.
Through the end.
Because
I'm still learning, so I don't know if there is an end.
Well, you went to university.
Yes, I went to UCLA. I graduated UCLA in 1972, Phi Beta Kappa, summa cum laude, with highest departmental honors, and went on to a fellowship at Johns Hopkins. And I studied international law and diplomacy at Johns Hopkins University, and they have a special campus for that in Washington, D.C., right near DuPont Circle, across the street from Brookings Institute. And I stayed there in Washington, D.C. for 3 years, and unfortunately it was right smack in the middle of the oil embargo, 1973. No jobs really in the foreign service, especially if you spoke the wrong language. At the State Department, there are many Arab language desks from all the countries, and that was one area you could go into, or for oil companies. But I spoke Hebrew, read, write, and speak Hebrew, and there's only one desk for Israel. Very high competition to get in. So I came back to Los Angeles and went to law school at Loyola Law School. Graduated there in 1976. And as I said, I'm still learning.
So you've decided to practice as a lawyer. And you already said that it has helped you, your experience growing up in a Delhi, really, helped you a good deal in interacting with people and having an interest in in their lives, really. But what made you decide to become an attorney in the first place?
Well, first of all, I think my parents always pointed out to me that I was not going to work in the deli. They would not permit me to have that job. They wanted something more for their children. My sister went on to become a social worker. She recently retired at the age of 60 after a career in social services. So I had the gift of gab, as they say, and what are you going to do if you're not good in math or science, so you can't be a doctor or an engineer? Your choices are limited, so I became an attorney.
Well, the law is full of people who can't count.
I know a third.
Yes. So are your parents still alive?
They are both alive and well, living not far from here in North Hollywood.
So their life story is the most amazing thing. From small town in Poland through really the worst experience conceivable to living happily with a very successful son and daughter.
Well, and we're very blessed that we're in this country and we have the freedom to do what we want to do and to pursue our dreams and goals. And my desire to work with people and help people who are disadvantaged, people who are injured, people who are oppressed, I think comes from that background of knowing that there is a lot of suffering in the world. And we can, as attorneys, as personal injury attorneys, we do something about that every day.
Well, I was going to ask about that.
I'm foreshadowing again.
I'm glad you are. It leads into it in the most perfect way, because the law itself is a huge field. When we look at specialties, legal specialties, we're looking at maybe as many as 50, maybe more. And you had a very exalted education. UCLA, Johns Hopkins, and then Loyola, very eminent law school. So you had a choice. And so you made a particular choice. Why that? What was it that attracted you?
Well, as I started to say, I think that my role model is a David and Goliath role model.
Oh, you use Goliath?
Well, every day I fight Goliath. Insurance companies and large institutions and cities that we wind up suing to get reasonable compensation for people who are injured. That represents Goliath to me, and I'm David with a slingshot. I don't have the resources that they do, but I have the determination to help people. And as I said, I think I was born to fight for the rights of people who are oppressed. I believe in that. I feel very good in the morning looking in the mirror and saying, today I'm going to go out and help somebody. Today I'm going to do good. I'm going to try to solve people's problems. I'm going to try to help them with their injuries and get back on track, as opposed to maybe a corporate lawyer. He's looking in the mirror saying, well, how many billable hours am I going to have today, and which corporation am I going to work for, and which deal? It's a money concern, and it's obviously there's good things that can be done in other fields. I don't mean to demean those fields, but I believe that I live to litigate for the little guy. That's my goal.
Were you ever tempted by the corporate lawyer life?
I'll tell you why I wasn't, because in personal injury law, there is a performance level. There is something where I do enjoy the showmanship of going to trial. I enjoy producing and directing and scripting a trial and having my witnesses. Of course, I enjoy winning. I don't enjoy when bad things happen, and it is stressful. But there is something about trial work that gives you the best of both worlds. You're working in the legal field, you're helping people, you're negotiating, you're drafting. I love to write and read. But you also have that performance, the ultimate trial, which is the show. You do have show time. And I love that. I love being able to put all the work I've done and all the preparation, all the organization, and bring it together and present it to a jury and watch their reactions and see what they do. Hopefully they do the right thing. So it has everything that I like.
Now, the corporate attorney, as we've already discussed, is paid by the corporation. But you're working for the little guy. When we think of the little guy, we often think of someone who couldn't really afford to pay extended lawyer fees. So not everyone knows, how do you earn a living?
Well, that's the hard part, because you're right. People don't know that we only get paid if we win, and it's called contingency fees. So if I am
contingent on a result.
Correct. A successful result.
A successful, exactly. So no successful result, you're out of pocket, are you?
Well, that's right. And not only do you not get paid for your time and your efforts and the efforts of your staff and all the overhead that you have to continue to pay even if you are not successful in a particular case. But worse than that, you have an investment of money to fund the litigation. You can have a complicated case going to trial where you've invested $100,000 of your own money and countless hours of work. And the judge or the jury may just decide that you are not going to win, because on the other side is a very capable adversary who everything that you want to claim, they're going to claim the opposite. And they're going to say that didn't happen that way, or that we're not liable for that, or those injuries are not what you say they are. So we don't win all the time. And unfortunately, when you don't, you're out that time and you're out that investment of money. And of course, your client is lost the ability to recover for whatever injuries or claims that you've advanced on their behalf.
So this doesn't sound like
not for the faint of heart.
For the faint of heart.
I knew you were thinking.
I knew I was thinking of that exact phrase. This profession must attract really a quite unusual type of person. Would you agree?
I think you have to be uniquely suited to not think about money. I think the people who are in this and think about money perhaps are the ones that try to settle cases cheap and don't go to trial and not invest enough money in those cases. I think to be successful and to really care about the clients, you can't think about, am I going to make money in this case? The real concern is, I'm not prepared for this case. I'm going to worry about preparation. I'm not going to worry about money. That's the only way I think that I can survive and sleep at night, is by not worrying about, is the case going to generate money? It's a philosophy. It's more about, I like to consider my philosophy in practicing law as a client for life, is what I look at it. I'm focused on the client, not the money. I'm focused on working for the client, caring for them, investing my energies, my abilities, my experience and expertise in a field, applying that effort and hard work, and hoping that it all turns out the way we expect it to, but not thinking about the money.
That's a very interesting philosophy. Think about the client, think about the preparation, think about the drama that really you're directing to unfold, but don't think about the money. But when it does turn out right, all this time, say it's been going on for a year, 2 years, however long it goes on, but really that's a reasonable estimate, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
A couple of years you've been carrying the case, you've been spending money, the client hasn't been spending, but then let's say it all turns out okay. Then how do you get paid?
Well, then there is a sum of money, and depending on the fee structure, because different cases by law have a different fee structure. For example, medical malpractice cases, since 1975, the legislature in its wisdom decided to limit attorney's fees and limit damages in medical malpractice cases. So those cases have a fee structure of a declining percent, going down to 15% once the numbers exceed a certain point. So then if it's that amount and the court awards those fees, then you're paid out of the ultimate result. The client is paid the net that is left after the expenses and the attorney's fees and any liens, which are for treatment, medical bills, things of that nature.
Well, so here we are on a public program. So explain, first of all, spell it, lien, and then explain it a bit more.
L-I-E-N.
Okay, L-I-E-N. What does it mean?
A lien is where, let's say, you were injured in a motor vehicle accident and you do not have medical insurance and you need to get treatment. Well, there are doctors who will supply medical treatment also on a contingent basis. They will get paid when the case is resolved. So they have a lien on the recovery in the case. So if you had that motor vehicle accident and at the end of the case there is $100,000 awarded and the case is at a certain stage and the attorney's fees are a third, it's not unlikely that the attorney will get 1/3. The lien holder, the doctors or the medical facility, could be a hospital, might get 1/3, and the client might get 1/3. So that's one way to describe how a lien in a hypothetical accident case would be resolved.
So here, by the way, as far as I know, this happens in the United States and really nowhere else.
That's correct. And we're very lucky to have that system, because the wisdom of it is that it gives people like me who have the experience to help others the incentive to do it and to get it done and to get a reward for doing that work. In other countries where you don't have that system, attorneys are not motivated to represent people in those cases. And those cases are simply handled like an insurance claim without an attorney, so people get less. So we're very fortunate to build into the system of tort litigation an incentive package that compensates the attorney for the initiative, carrying the case, the risk, the expense, and all the other factors that go into making a successful case successful.
Right. Well, you talked about tort, but explain tort, not a tart.
No.
Not a French tart.
No, absolutely not.
Tort. What is it?
Torts are civil wrongs, T-O-R-T. A tort is anything that is not criminal, but someone is getting injured through either a negligent act or omission of someone else. So an automobile accident is a tort. A slip-fall case is a tort. Premises liability case is what we call it. Professional liability cases, medical malpractice, legal malpractice, these are torts.
So where someone has allegedly hurt another person, but not criminally, but in such a way that the injured person should be entitled to recover from the...
Well said.
Well said. I did something right. Thank you. Okay, so we're in agreement on that. So that's how people in your line of work get paid, on this contingent basis. And we have a system then that says there are medical providers out there who will also do their work for a lien, in other words, but they're not doing it for a percentage, are they? That's the difference.
No, they're not doing it for a percentage. They're going to be compensated based on the services they performed. And very often they're asked at the end of the case, if it did not come out as successfully as hoped, to reduce the lien. And doctors who work with reputable attorneys, who trust those attorneys and know they're doing their best efforts, will work with the attorney at the end. That's another reason why it's important to have someone who's been doing this a long time and knows physicians and other professionals in the field, so that when someone needs help, they need a reference to a doctor who will take a lien. They may need an orthopedist. They may need a neurologist. They may need someone to do an MRI. Well, there are physicians out there who will do that for clients of reputable attorneys on a lien basis, because they know more times than not they will be getting paid for their services.
Now, you've been doing this for a long time.
Yes.
Yes. Not that long. Well, 30 years.
32 approximately.
32 years.
A little longer than I've been married. About the same time.
And are you still engaged and excited by it?
I am engaged and I am excited because every day is something new. Every day this week I was somewhere else. Wednesday I was in depositions all day in Riverside with a lovely Filipino family that were being deposed in a wrongful death case, a medical malpractice case. Yesterday I was in the Court of Appeal arguing a very interesting case that went to trial. Every day I'm appearing somewhere else and doing something different. Some days I spend a lot of time simply working on strategy and drafting documents that may appear to be boring to others, but I'm creating and enriching a case with theories and language, the tool of language which we are trained to use. And so it's still exciting. It's not easy, but it's exciting.
What's not easy about it?
Well, you get a lot of rejection and stress. Everything is time sensitive. And as I mentioned earlier, for every move that you make, there's a counter move by your opponent. But it doesn't just end there, because then you have a judge who may criticize the way both of you have applied your efforts. And then at the end of the day, you have a jury who also may not see eye to eye with your presentation and your theory, or may not like the client, or may not like the claim. So at any given point, your best efforts may turn out to be less than successful. And all the while, you are under very strict time limits. You have the courts give you, back in the old days when I started practicing, we had the 5-year rule, which meant you start a claim, get it done within 5 years. And then they shortened that to the 3-year rule, where you have to get your complaint served and all of your people that you are suing identified and served within 3 years. About 10 years or so ago, they enacted fast track, which is a 1-year rule, and says, well, it's not good enough to get your trials done and your people served. You have to complete your case from start to finish, including trial, within 1 year of filing. Well, then the courts just took that to a whole different level, because now, literally every few weeks, you have deadlines to report to the court on the progress of the case. Complete mediation. We haven't mentioned a side area that you do very successfully, which is mediation. And mediation has to be completed within a certain time period. So everything has a time deadline, and that causes a lot of stress. So you have to get everything done and worry about how it's going to be received by these various dragons lurking in the behind the scenes.
Well, since we've talked, now mediation has been raised, will you explain what it is?
Mediation is a either judicially supervised, mediation can be done on order of the court, or privately, voluntarily. And mediation is simply a method to resolve claims short of trial or short of litigation. So you can have any dispute, not necessarily just a personal injury dispute. You can have a divorce, you can have a business case, and go to a person who is qualified and trusted like yourself, and both sides will come together and say, well, Mr. Parselle, we have a problem here, we'd like you to help us resolve it. And you'll mediate it for us and tell both sides that they're equally right and wrong at the same time, and hopefully reach a mediated result that both sides are perhaps somewhat unhappy with, but resolves the case and gets closure. That was a long definition of mediation.
That was quite good, though. I liked it, but everything you've said leads me to suppose that you really enjoy the process of trial itself. So does mediation get in the way of that desire, or is it something you're willing to use?
Well, not just willing to use, but have a duty to use. I think that in every case, again, thinking of the client first, we have an obligation as attorneys to get the case resolved. If we can get it resolved in a way that fairly compensates the person for their injury or damages, we have a duty to explore that. We may not like the other side that we're dealing with, our adversary, but we have a duty to deal with that person, pick a mediator, try to get the case settled. If the case can't settle, if it can't be mediated, and trial becomes the only option, of course, then we do the best we can with it.
Well, right now we have bad news and good news, but the bad news is not bad. However, this interview is coming to an end, but the good news is that I'm about to interview you again, because I really want to get on and start to talk about the cases that you have done that were memorable to you, and the cases that you are doing right now that are memorable to you, because I know from my own deep experience that people love to hear about cases, specific stories. And I've been told by others that for lawyers too, it's not all the dry stuff, it's all about, well, I like the law myself, I won't refer to it as the dry stuff, but it's about the stories that these people bring into and enrich your life with as you're trying to help them. Would you agree with that? And are you willing to talk about it?
No.
No, I know you are.
Of course I am.
I know you are.
I wouldn't disappoint.
So I think we're about to call it a day. Thank you so much for this first half hour.
Phase one.
Phase one. I look forward to the second half.
Very well.
And
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. And I think we're about, yes, the credits are rolling.